it is interesting why the use that Nervi does of this surface to compose and to shape physically the columns. It's very difficult to ascertain why Nervi started using it here and why, in general, he started using these geometries. I have the idea that it was maybe influenced by his eldest son, Antonio, an architect who was present in the UNESCO team. Because all the time that Antonio appears in some project, the interesting shape of columns appear, and also because Antonio worked with was friend to another great engineer, Sergio Musmeci, who was really interested in the form of structure. Of course, I cannot prove it at all, but that's just as a matter of discussion. This is a drawing in which you can see clearly the change, the variable section going up. So from the elliptical base to the rectangular top. Nervi could not admit that was an aesthetical gesture because he never did that in his whole life. So everything had to be explained by scientific reason or statical reason. And in this occasion, Nervi claimed that the shape is due to the fact that to have the elliptical base in which the major axis is aligned to the axis of the public traffic, so it's not an obstacle for people walking underneath the structure. And at the same time, the longer support over the transversal beam is the best way to actually support. I leave it to you to believe to this explanation or not. We will see other examples. But probably, in terms of curiosity, in terms of unique piece, I think this is probably one of the few unique pieces that Nervi delivered. This is the canopy over the west entrance of the building that at that time was supposed to be the main entrance. Now it's not any longer. This is a kind of secondary entrance, but by the project that was supposed to be the main one. And again, is a clear shape of the hyperbolic paraboloid. If you remember the Zarzuela hippodrome by Torroja, it's not very dissimilar. Of course, it's much more elonged, but the two supports and the hyperbolic hyper on top of it is somehow similar. It's not clear if Nervi knew the work that Candela was doing at the same time, or the essay probably not, but surely Nervi and Torroja were in contact, so they knew each other. They knew the work that they were doing. Nervi stated that this structure here is anti-static, which is a very strange claim from someone like Nervi that based all his structural philosophy on the honesty of his structure. And he said that if this structure was slightly bigger, it would have been almost impossible to build. So again, as a matter of open question, why he did it? Again, very difficult to say. I think that the influence that so many architects had on his decision at that time kind of pushed him to his formal limit, which in this case was this canopy. And there is also another interesting fact that in the same year, other important structural engineers or architects in this case were playing with the same surface. This is Felix Candela this is the kind of gatehouse of the Ciba Pharmaceutics in Mexico City. And I mean, this is totally different from what Nervi would have done, this kind of little gate with a central support. But the surface, although treated differently, is geometrically the same. And another, at that time, almost unknown engineer, Eladio Diese, delivered what is thought to be his most important building, the church in Atlantida, a small village in Uruguay, using again the surface of an hyper. I think you will have a conference on Eliade. If you don't know him, I'm sure you know it, but it's a fascinating, from my point of view, it's a fascinating designer with this, he call it ceramic armada, this kind of reinforced brickworks. So the 1950D is somehow the hyper here. I jumped. Of course, Nervi did other buildings after that one in the 50s, but I think the 1960s, as far as I understood, Professor Gregor suggested that gave him the final push. Nervi became not more a formidable and internationally known structural engineer. He stepped up, if you can say that, and he became a star architect. He became the architect of the Olympic Games. The idea of Rome being a set of contemporary story, in this case is a love story, set into a historical background, was precisely the idea that the Olympic Committee, the Italian Olympic Committee in Rome had. So to expose the magnificent structure of, especially the Roman structure, and actually host some of the Olympic disciplines. There were the gymnastic in the Caracalla baths, the wrestling in the Maxentius Basilica, and so on, but also to demonstrate the achievement of contemporary technology in construction. And in construction terms, Rome was identified in the kind of in the collective thought as a classic language, therefore symmetry, concrete, and constructional skills. And that was exactly what Nervi was doing, of course, 20 centuries later. And I think the Palazzetto dello Sport really is I mean, if you have to choose one building to explain Nervi, I would probably choose this one, although it's not totally Nervi's. It was ideas came to him by others. Vitellozzi was the architect who proposed this scheme to Nervi. Not this scheme, but a similar scheme. And there is a possibility that Musumeci again suggests this inclined pillar. But because of the quality and because of the space and time where this building happened to be, I think this push the frame and then the Life covers. The first image that I projected was a Life, the magazine Life. So he became a star. I will come back briefly on the structure of the dome of this building later on. But of course, Nervi submitted four designs for 4 competitions. So he submitted 4 designs for 4 competitions, and he won 3. And I don't know if it's totally true, but I was told by a collaborator of Nervi that the members of the Olympic Committee came to the practice and said that the velodrome, they couldn't give the velodrome to Nervi because it would be too much, and they would have been in trouble if Nervi won all the design he submitted. But anyway, he won 3 out of 4, so it's a good result. This was the first. The Palazzo that we have seen before. This is one of the most controversial buildings of Nervi because it was linked to the name of Piacentini, who was the chief architect during the fascist regime. So his detractors, people who didn't like Nervi, use this collaboration, which was totally factual. It was fictional, sorry. It was, yes, Piacentini was involved in the design in terms of he participated in some meeting, but effectively he didn't do almost nothing. But nevertheless, because the name was linked to Nervi, that was a reason to polemize with him. And other buildings that he did is the Stadium Flaminium, in collaboration with his son Antonio, and sometimes forgotten, which I think is a pity, is the Via Olimpica, which Nervi kind of throw in as a bonus once, as an extra reason for the Olympic Committee to give him the job of the Stadio Flaminio. So he said, if you give me the stadium, I'll take care of the viaduct. I think just one quick thing that I would like to say on this viaduct is that while Nervi used the laws of statics, or he claimed to use the laws of statics to shape his building, in this case he used the clotoid, which is a spiral, which is a geometrical, mathematical figure, which is used in the railway engineering to joint rectify, so linear piece of the track to curved one. And because of the gravitational, centrifugal force is the best curve possible, and he used the same curve. So it's fascinating how how Nervi used the laws of cinematic and not of statics when he did something for mobile objects. Briefly on the two domes. This is the Palazzetto. I'm sure you have seen the exhibition. And the construction method differs massively between the Palazzetto and the Palaeur. This is a very similar, probably the best example of the series of buildings that Nervi did in using element of ferrocement linked by ribs where the reinforcement were. As we have seen, I'll show you in a second the link. While the dome of the Palaeur is a series of arches linked together by this compressional ring on top. So Nervi claimed that this dome, the Palaeur one, is an hyperstatic building, a hyperstatic structure, because it works as a membrane, as a shell, but also as a series of arches. And then again, as he did for the old sea in Turin, he looked back to some of the construction and structure that he used before. And I think it's clear that it's absolutely evident that the metrics of the Palazzetto dello Sport, the dome, was the apse in the Turin exhibition in 1948. And although the quality of this building is much better than this one, there is some kind of incongruences in this one, while this is perfectly done. Also, maybe it was also a matter of time, and of course the expertise that Nervi and his about 20 builders gain in so many years. While the Palaeur is clearly taken by the other structural solution that Nervi used in Turin, where the ferrocement board beams, curved beams, define a vault in Turin. Because of the circular geometry of the Palaeur, the same beams will define the dome. But structurally are very, very similar. And I'm sure that you are aware that they are quite different in sizes. But this kind of overlapping of the two buildings is quite clear. This is the dome of the Palazzetto in red, and this is the dome of the Palaeur in blue. And you can see that the dome of the Palaeur is more than twice as much of the Palazzetto. So one idea could be that he used two different systems because of the dimension. But that's not the case, because only 5 years later, he delivered the dome for this sports center in Norfolk, Virginia, in the USA, where, again, looking back to the experience of the Palazzetto and the Palaeur, he mixed the two. So this is, as far as I know, and I was talking to Alberto some weeks ago, I need to find out. So if you know better, just tell me. As far as I know, this is the largest dome in reinforced concrete in the world. It's 133 meters diameter, so it's bigger than the Palaeur. But internally, the construction is similar to the Palazzetto one. So it has the dimension of the Palaeur, it has the construction system of the Palazzetto, and also the kind of tangential supports, the wise tangential supports. It is different though, because all these elements, firstly they are not rhomboidal, they are triangular. Then there is these rings, supporting rings, which are not present in the palazzetto. But I think more importantly, for an aesthetic point of view, and also from an overall quality point of view, is that while the rhomboids in the palazzetto are effectively a portion of a sphere, being the whole dome a portion of a sphere. So each of these rhomboidals are described a portion of a sphere. These elements are flat, so it's a kind of polygonal, multi-polygonal surface, a kind of diamond effect. And I think the aesthetics and the perception once you are there is quite different. Whatever was the reason, whatever was the technology, the technique, many observers, even the more skeptical, like Bruno Xavi, could not fail to identify this dome, which is a beautiful example, in my opinion, of structure and architecture, to another dome who did the same some centuries before. And Xavi described the palazzetto, a flattened pantheon in reinforced concrete, which I think is a kind of appropriate definition. And maybe this is only for the kind of nervy scholars or freaks. The relationship between Nervi and Xavi was not the best one. They were, there were two very strong personalities, both teaching at the Faculty of Architecture in Rome, and there are legendary exchange of view, always in the kind of polite terms, but very, very kind of strong. So I think Xavi, in this occasion, make a great compliment to Nervi. In the 60s, like it happens in other disciplines, from painting, sculpture, music, it was a decade of experiment. And Nervi let it go in a series of hybrid structure, so mixing his favorite material, reinforced concrete, and metals, steel and aluminium. Some of them are known, some probably less. This is the first one that I know. It is the bus terminal into the George Washington Bridge in New York, where Nervi had to construct the terminal above the metro station was below, and the metro station had the steel structure, and I believe that to link his structure to the floor below, made of steel, he used these hinges in steel. And probably the other reason was to eliminate, or not eliminate, but to reduce the vibration due to the passage of the trains. Anyway, this is an interesting and a timid first example of use of steel and structure. But everybody knows this other building, the Palazzo del Lavoro in Turin, where essentially for time constraint, Nervi adopted the steel capital of his reinforced concrete columns. I would like to stress again that apparently the idea to construct the Palazzo del Lavoro in the way it was constructed, so using these 16 elements and building up while other parts of the building were going on, was actually Antonio's idea, not Pier-Luigi. It was Antonio that suggested to do that. And they started to investigate the option to do the roof in concrete, in reinforced concrete, but the time constraint was to open this building on the 1st of May in 1961 for the Labor Day. And so that meant that the building site was operative during the winter period, which was pretty cold. So they had no chance to construct the roof in concrete, and therefore they adopted the steel solution. The steel solution was calculated not by Nervi, who probably never kind of put, was never comfortable in the calculation of steel, by another structural engineer called Gino Covre, who also, This is interesting. This is clearly a photo of the building site, and you can see the substructure elements in steel sheets. Now, in 1963, Nervi, without making too fuss about it, dismantled completely all the roofs and substituted these elements with ferrocement elements, similar to what he used in the Palazzetto or in other buildings. And the reason was that he realized that the structure was deflecting a little bit too much. We don't know what was exactly the excuse me, the reason why, but probably it was due to a heavy snowfall that happened in the winter of '61, which determined this problem. So in 1963, he came up with his team, dismantled completely, and substituted. The idea was to stiffen, to strengthen the structure. So this is not any longer the structure that is there. Gino Covre helped Nervi to do also this building. This is the Burgo paper mill in Mantua. Another interesting story is, but the presence of steel here is quite evident, both in the catenary elements and in the roof, in the steel roof. I go quickly to these other, excuse me, these are two structures. This is an interesting episode in Nervi's career, because in 1962, a Californian company which was constructing steel structure approached Nervi indirectly, but nevertheless they wanted Nervi to design some elevated motorway and two bridges for them. And Nervi did it, and I think it was probably not the apex of his parabola, because as you can see here, he replicated essentially the columns in the shape that we have seen in the UNESCO building, which has a justification, but also is made out of concrete. So the use of a ruled surface makes sense, because it has to be constructed in straight formworks. But when you use steel, you don't need to have this. And even worse, in the other impressive bridge, spanning 150 meters, almost 80 meters off the ground, in a seismic area close to San Francisco, he used these steel elements, and you can see again the ruled surface. Now, this could be a drawing maybe, but I think it's just a kind of exercise in style. But that what Kaisersteel exactly wanted. They wanted to have Nervi, the great constructor in reinforced concrete, to build something for them. They were never built, but it is interesting how Nervi was dealing with the steel. Even less known, well, I think it's quite apparent where the copyright of this picture is. Even a less known building is the project for the Kuvite Sports Center in 1968. The Kuvite was a British colony until 1964, and then they became an independent country, and they wanted to, show and renovate their architectural heritage. And in particular, they wanted to have this large Olympic sports center in Kuwait. And they invite personally some designer to design this sports center. And Nervi and the studio Nervi did their proposal, and totally unasked, they also provide this dome, which was supposed to span for 256 meters. And the interesting part of the story is that they already started to calculate, to design this dome in concrete. But a British company doing, I need to drink. Excuse me. I'm not sure I can go on for long. It's nothing serious. I have these pharyngitis that cut my voice at some point in the most appropriate time, as you can see. Anyway, aluminum structure in a Nervi's dome. You can see it here. This was the drawing that Nervi sent to the Kuvite government. Nervi was not the only architect called. Also Candela was called in. And this is only the only one drawing that I could find. And you can see the closeness of this building to the building that he already delivered for the Mexico City Games, which is this one, again in a steel structure. But the winner was not Nervi nor Candela, but was a partnership between Kenzo Tange and Fraiotto. Other two Olympic constructors, Kenzo Tange in Japan 1964, and Fraiotto will be in 1972. And you can see the tensile structure typical of Fraiotto. Unfortunately, this building was not constructed. But I think it is interesting as an experiment to put together 4 Olympic designers. In the 70s, Nervi, almost 80 years old, came back to his first love, concrete. In many occasions, but I think probably the last testament of him was this building here, which is the audience hall in the Vatican City, where, in my opinion, the most important component is the definition of the concrete. He sent his son Vittorio for 6 months around all Italy to find the right aggregates to construct these 2 gigantic columns, which are really like stones, and they were treated like stones with a hammer, a kind of medieval technology. So in the end of his career, he was really able to conceive and to construct the melted stone. In terms of space, again, Nervi used the tuning structure. I mean, if you see this picture and this picture, the quality of concrete is different, but the speciality, the structural system is exactly the same. It's just rotated, the axis is rotated. One interesting thing, though, is that he did before a conference hall. It's somewhere in the middle there. It's the conference hall for the UNESCO building, which has a trapezoidal form in green. This is a scaled comparison. The UNESCO is about 66 meters long, and the Vatican Hall is about 80 meters. Now, Nervi realized, the difference was that Nervi, on this occasion, was constructing the audience halls with his company. So he wanted to minimize and to be as cost-effective as possible, as always. So instead of having a trapezoidal shape, he used the sector so that the main beams could be constructed using the same timber form, because it was just the same. And that dictated the shape of the building in plan. So briefly, I conclude. The legacy. Well, the legacy is this exhibition revolving around Europe, but also, of course, is buildings. A series of pictures of the state of the buildings today. The Palazzetto is still the home of volleyball and basketball teams in Rome. The Paralottomatica is essentially used as a venue for concerts, pop and rock concerts. They use this kind of element which open up like flowers to improve the acoustics. Apparently, the Guns N' Roses and the last concert with the fireworks burned one of these, and this cost like 25,000 euros, so they were not very happy. And it's also used for major political conferences. And that's the reason why they changed all the color of the seats into a neutral white, not to have red or blue, for example. The exhibition hall in Turin still in work. This was an exhibition of some years ago of Fiat and Ferrari. But there are other buildings which didn't have that success. This is the empty swimming pool, one of the facilities within the Stadio Flaminio. The Stadio Flaminio was used till 2 years ago as a rugby home for the Italian rugby, and used I think there is a Serie C football team playing there. But there are facilities within the stadium which were used till years ago, and now they are totally abandoned. This is I don't know, maybe Alberto knows more about the fate of this building. There were a series of projects going on for the Palazzo del Lavoro, but as far as I know, it's still empty and in a very, very damaged condition. The legacy of Nervi also lies on the refurbishment that has been done in his building, or indeed in the reconstruction. This is a platform that was constructed in reinforced concrete that was demolished and reconstructed in Gruland timber in 2004 in Ostia, in the coast of Rome. And also as a direct influence for practice in architecture. This is the exhibition complex in Rimini in Italy, designed by Mark and Paul Gerkank, which I think there is a clear and direct almost quotation of some of Nervi's building. And even to set background images for advertisement, I received this RIBA charter membership in 2004. Nervi was awarded by RIBA, which is the Royal Institute of British Architects, by the gold medal in 1960. And so he is an engineer, and one of his buildings is used to sponsor an architectural membership. So I think, and I conclude here, I think Nervi was one of the great interpreter of the dialogue between form and structure, between space and matter. And as a teacher, I think he still provide. I taught both in School of Engineering and in School of Architecture, and when I show Nervi, both of the cohorts of students were happy. And I think this is still a powerful source of inspiration. I think in the end he was an ambivalent designer who looked at the past to build the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe invite Professor Greco to come if some of you have questions. Si vous avez des questions à poser, Professeur Greco, Professeur Cresciani.
So everything was clear. That's
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so I want to thank you. Merci beaucoup, Professeur Greco, Professeur Cresciani. Merci aussi Alberto Bologna pour l'organisation. Donc cette conférence était dédiée à Nervi. On a maintenant fait vraiment un tour de la question sur Nervi, mais les prochaines conférences, comme vous l'avez compris, traiteront d'autres architectes, et je vous invite à suivre vraiment la série de conférences qui apportera une vision globale des ingénieurs concepteurs et du rapport entre ingénieurs et architecture. Et donc le professeur Moutoni qui s'excuse pour ce soir, il est à Tel Aviv. C'est la seule conférence qu'il ne pourra pas suivre, mais professeur Moutoni avec Alberto Bologna ont constituer cette série de conférences avec cette idée que chaque conférence vraiment se complète les unes des autres. Donc c'était la première, bien sûr, avec la conférence inaugurale du professeur Poretti la semaine dernière, mais chaque semaine il y aura ce rendez-vous où vous êtes cordialement invités. Merci beaucoup et bonne fin de soirée.